Welcome to Broadcasting 103. I'm Professor Tracy Savage, and this is my lecture video. I'm looking forward to teaching this class. I hope you find it enjoyable, interesting, and helpful. I think you're going to get a lot out of this class, even if you don't pursue a broadcasting career where you get paid to talk. This class will help you improve your ability to speak on a microphone or in front of a crowd, any crowd. One day you may have to make a sales presentation, or hold a press conference, or even be interviewed for that dream job. The skills you learn in this class will help you succeed in whatever you pursue. Before we get started, here's what you will have done by the end of this week. You will have watched this lecture video. You'll submit paperwork, including a photocopy of your driver's license, to borrow the audio recorder. Once you've submitted your gear checkout paperwork, that will allow you to check out the audio recorder. You'll also need to gather the supplies that you need for this class: a hard drive that's Mac compatible, 2 AA batteries, and an SD card. You won't need to buy a textbook. And then finally this week, you're going to be completing and submitting your first exercise, which is called cold reading. All right, let's take a look at the agenda for this lecture video. Here's what I'm going to be talking about in this lecture video. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to this class. Hopefully, by now, you've already reviewed all of the materials in the introduction module. If you haven't watched the course overview video in the introduction module, please stop and watch it right now. This video will answer most of your questions, and watching this video will help set you up for success in this class. Then in this video, I'll be talking about a very common issue that people who speak in front of a crowd or on a mic in a studio often deal with: mic fright. Yes, even experienced broadcasters get nervous. I'm going to give you tips to help you overcome this common phobia. And finally, I'll be assigning you your first exercise in this class. It's a cold reading that you will do on camera. Okay, so first, the class. I want to tell you the secret to success in this class. First, you need to understand that you will all ace this class. You'll all get A's in the class if you show up to class and do all the exercises and follow directions carefully, turning everything in on time. You'll pass with flying colors. It's that simple. By the way, the PowerPoint presentations that I use to produce my lecture videos will be posted on Canvas. In addition to watching the weekly lecture videos, you can use the PowerPoint presentations to help you take notes and to help you with the quizzes that will follow my lecture videos. Yes, your weekly quizzes will be open notes, and these PowerPoints will help you on the quizzes. Occasionally, I will email you. I email you through Canvas that uses your LACCD student email address that you have listed in Canvas. So be sure to check your LACCD email inbox often. No excuses if you miss something because you didn't get the email. I've already reviewed the syllabus for you in the course overview video in the introduction module, but just a reminder. You'll find the syllabus on Canvas. Click on the Syllabus tab found in the left Course Navigation column. This class will follow the syllabus closely, and you are responsible for turning in assignments on time. Everything gets uploaded to Canvas. Each week on Canvas, you'll find drop boxes for that week's assignments where you will submit your work. All right, now, let's talk about mic fright. It's not just in your head.
Palm sweaty, heart racing, stomach in knots. You can't cry for help. Not only is your throat too tight to breathe, but it'd be so embarrassing. No, you aren't being stalked by a monster. You're speaking in public. a fate some deem worse than death. See, when you're dead, you feel nothing. At a podium, you feel stage fright. But at some point, we all have to communicate in front of people, so you have to try and overcome it. To start, understand what stage fright is. Humans, social animals that we are wired to worry about reputation. Public speaking can threaten it. Before a speech, you fret. What if people think I'm awful, that I'm an idiot? That fear of being seen as an awful idiot is a threat reaction from a primitive part of your brain that's very hard to control. It's the fight or flight response, a self-protective process seen in a range of animals, most of which don't give speeches. But we have a wise partner in the study of freaking out. Charles Darwin tested fight or flight at the London Zoo's snake exhibit. He wrote in his diary, "My will and reason were powerless against the imagination of a danger which had never been experienced." He concluded that his response was an ancient reaction unaffected by the nuances of modern civilization. So to your conscious modern mind, it's a speech. To the rest of your brain, built up to code with the law of the jungle, when you perceive the possible consequences of blowing a speech, it's time to run for your life or fight to the death. Your hypothalamus, common to all vertebrates, triggers your pituitary gland to secrete the hormone ACTH, making your adrenal glands shoot adrenaline into your blood. Your neck and back tense up, you slouch. Your legs and hands shake as your muscles prepare for attack. You sweat, your blood pressure jumps. Your digestion shuts down to maximize the delivery of nutrients and oxygen to muscles and vital organs. So you get dry mouth, butterflies. Your pupils dilate. It's hard to read anything up close, like your notes. But long range is easy. That's how stage fright works. How do we fight it? First, perspective. This isn't all in your head. It's a natural, hormonal, full-body reaction by an autonomic nervous system on autopilot. And genetics play a huge role in social anxiety. John Lennon played live thousands of times, each time he vomited beforehand. Some people are just wired to feel more scared performing in public. Since stage fright is natural and inevitable, focus on what you can control. Practice. A lot, starting long before in an environment similar to the real performance. Practicing any task increases your familiarity and reduces anxiety, so when it's time to speak in public, you're confident in yourself and the task at hand. Steve Jobs rehearsed his epic speeches for hundreds of hours, starting weeks in advance. If you know what you're saying, you'll feed off the crowd's energy instead of letting your hypothalamus convince your body it's about to be lunch for a pack of predators. But hey, the vertebrate hypothalamus has had millions of years more practice than you. Just before you go on stage, it's time to fight dirty and trick your brain. Stretch your arms up and breathe deeply. This makes your hypothalamus trigger a relaxation response. Stage fright usually hits hardest right before a presentation, so take that last minute to stretch and breathe. You approach the mic, voice clear, body relaxed. Your well-prepared speech convinces the wild crowd you're a charismatic genius. How? You didn't overcome stage fright. You adapted to it. And to the fact that no matter how civilized you may seem, in part of your brain, you're still a wild animal. A profound, well-spoken wild animal.
Whether you are experienced at getting up in front of an audience or stone cold terrified of speaking into a mic, one thing is certain. We all have at least one thing that sends chills of fear down our collective spinal cords. Regardless of where your fear resides, the most important step to overcoming said fear is to name it and get it out into the sunlight. And once you've named it, it's time to do the work of dealing with it. So now, drum roll please, the top 10 public speaking fears revealed. Number 1, my voice shakes. I become breathless. If you can control your breath, you can control your voice. Shaky breathing or heavy breathing is caused by the dreaded fight or flight response and anxiety. Fight or flight is one of the worst ways to respond to a situation, be it public speaking or otherwise. It limits our ability to think creatively, empathetically, and triggers all manner of brash, half-baked decisions. By focusing on the breath, we arrest the fight or flight response and come into the present moment. We often describe charismatic people as having tremendous presence. Well, presence is exactly that, focusing on this moment, this conversation. And the gateway to presence is the breath. By focusing on deepening and evening out your breath a few minutes before you are set to speak, your body responds by calming down. Your heart rate slows. You bring the full power of yourself to this moment. Focusing on nothing but the breath is one of the hardest things we can do, though. Our minds are built for distraction. To help drive out other thoughts, tell yourself, my only job right now is to breathe in. My only job right now is to breathe out. If you've done all of the preparation ahead of time, this truly is your only job. Show up and breathe. Try this the next time you find your breath becoming shallow in any situation. You'll be surprised by how effective it is. Number 2, I forget what I'm going to say. In other words, my brain betrays me. There are 2 key weapons for fighting brain freeze. First, practice. Be disciplined about going through the speech or presentation as many times as it takes. Some people can go through their talking points 3 or 4 times and be ready to rock. Others need 10 times as many run-throughs. Know what category you fall into and don't judge yourself. Just schedule the time necessary to prepare adequately. Second, design your speech or presentation in a way that's brain-friendly so that neither you nor your audience have a problem remembering the content. Know where you're going and where you plan to end up with a logical beginning that leads to the middle and that leads to the end. By far, the worst episodes of brain freeze that I've witnessed have been triggered by one thing: memorization. When we memorize, the focus moves away from connecting the audience with concepts and towards getting the words just right. Who cares whether the words are slightly different from the original script? The point is to make sure the audience is feeling what you're bringing. It's important to remember that vision trumps all other senses. Think about that. If visuals, images, are the most important elements of an experience from a sensory standpoint, why the heck would we only rely on text or words? Or if you're not using something visual like PowerPoint, the words you choose to speak must paint a vivid picture in people's minds. Not only is this approach easier for your audience to remember, if done right, presenting content visually, either using images or words, will help you to remember the content. Number 3, I have a technical glitch and my demo PowerPoint video doesn't work. If there's anything that causes panic, sweat, and the occasional facial twitch, it's when technology goes sideways. In most cases, this is something over which we have very little control. What little control we do have, we need to take advantage of. Namely, number 1, arrive early as they'll let you, and test everything. If you're demonstrating something that relies on Wi-Fi, make sure the venue is set up to deal with the volume of people also sitting on said Wi-Fi network. If the conference people don't know whether it'll be a problem, have a backup plan. No, a canned demo is not ideal, but it is often a great fallback position when the gods of the interwebs are messing with you. Don't lie to the audience about the demo being canned. Just say, given the Wi-Fi traffic issue, we have a backup demo so you can see what we're talking about. Number 2, most importantly, make sure you know your stuff so thoroughly that if you had to get up and wing it without PowerPoint or without your demo or with a non-existent internet connection, you could do so without breaking into a cold sweat or screaming at your laptop. The audience will vibe off of your reaction in a big way. If you're tense and terrified, the audience will immediately feel uncomfortable and stressed, like watching a skater attempt a triple Lutz unsuccessfully. If you roll with it, laugh it off, and keep it light, the audience will have tremendous respect for you and will go where you lead them in your presentation. And number 3, breathe. Many times, things just take a minute or two to start working, which can feel like an eternity. If you know you have at least a solid backup plan, you won't completely come unhinged while you're waiting for that internet connection to work or that demo to come to life. Remember, it happens to the best of us. Sometimes things just go wrong. Don't let it ruin your mojo. All right, the number 4 top public speaking phobias. I get a heckler. What could be worse than pouring your heart out on stage and having someone call BS on you? But sometimes a heckler can take a less obvious form. It's that sour face and nasty expression 2 rows back that you can't help but notice. Well, I have a secret to share with you. Hecklers and naysayers can be the best thing for your presentation, but you have to know how to deal with them. For a vocal naysayer or heckler, always validate. Regardless of what the comment is, paraphrasing what is being said and validating the concern or statement. For example, I'm not buying what you're suggesting here. You have a vested interest in selling us on this stuff, and I'm not convinced it's the right way to go. So, what would you say in response? Well, how about something like this? Sounds like you're really skeptical of what I'm talking about here. There are probably others who have the same concerns. Can you give me an example? Have you had a bad experience with whatever you're talking about? Open up. Try and understand where the person is coming from. Once you understand his or her position, you can calmly talk it through and ask the audience for input as well. It makes you A, look powerful and in control, and B, incredibly trustworthy and open. For Miss Sourface in row number 2, acknowledge her. If you see someone scowling or shaking their head in disagreement, acknowledge what you're seeing. I can see from some of your faces that you have strong feelings about this. I'd love to know what your experiences have been. Make contact with Miss Sourface in an open, friendly way. Most of the time, these people don't realize that you, the speaker, are picking up on their facial expressions. Don't fight your haters. Validate them. The irony is that by responding with respect and empathy, it only strengthens your position. Number 5. No one laughs at my jokes. The audience is flat and unengaged. This is really a tough one, especially for people who are used to winning over an audience quickly with their sense of humor. Word to the wise. Don't hinge your momentum on whether or not someone laughs at a joke. Remember, you can't control what an audience finds funny, so why base your success or comfort level on something you can't control? What you can control is whether the content meets the audience's need for information or insights. If you are 100% devoted to developing a presentation or speech that puts the audience first, you won't be so reliant on jokes to warm them up. You'll be focused on designing content that is interesting, memorable, and actionable and useful. If you decide to slide a joke in here or there, because that's how you roll, then by all means do it, but it's hardly the emphasis, and your self-esteem shouldn't be attached to it. Occasionally, even if you've done everything right, you still get a cold kettle of fish staring back at you from the audience. Here's the best tip I can give you. Get them talking. Adults often learn best by talking about their experiences, so whatever it is you're presenting, build in some opportunities for discussion. Prepare 3 to 5 questions ahead of time. And if it's a huge group, ask for a show of hands versus asking someone to bravely answer a question in front of 1,500 people. Even just that limited amount of exchange between speaker and listener can warm up even the coldest crowd. The number 6 public speaking phobia is the fear that the audience won't understand what you are presenting. Do your work ahead of time. When you are asked to speak, the 3 most important questions to ask the person who invited you are: 1, who are these people? 2, what do they need from me? And 3, how much time do I have with them? Run your content and ideas by him or her if possible. Make sure you're on the right track. Talk to the audience. This may come as a huge shock, but you can talk to your audience even in the middle of your presentation. If you're seeing more than a few confused-looking faces, stop what you're doing and say, "I like to check every so often to make sure you're with me. Does this make sense so far?" Raise your hand if you understand where I'm coming from. Make actual pause points in your presentation that allow you to check in, and rehearse so that these check-ins roll off your tongue effortlessly, as opposed to looking like you're sweating bullets, praying that people are with you. Number 7, people will think I'm not qualified to be on stage or leading the discussion or weighing in with my opinion. This, my friends, is the imposter's syndrome raising its ugly head. When we doubt our worthiness, it really is just another attack of ego. If we're truly focused on the task at hand, being of service to the audience, giving them information and insights, we will be too busy to ask, who am I to be giving advice? Get over it. Someone thinks you're worthy, and now it's your job to serve the audience, period. Number 8, I speed through my presentation and do 20 minutes worth of content in 10 minutes, or I go too slowly and run way too long. The good news is that this is 100% under your control. Essentially, pace and timing are affected by two things. One, the appropriateness of the content. In other words, have you tried to throw everything plus the kitchen sink in because you're too close to it to know the difference? Or have you glossed over too many concepts without adequately walking through examples? And 2, the pace of your delivery. This is really a matter of practice and self-awareness, and I can't recommend highly enough standing in front of a camera or even a mirror to get a good sense of your own ideal rhythm. Your rhythm and pace are unique unto you, and it's a matter of settling on what is most authentically you and what most suits an audience's need to learn. This is a key dimension to cultivating your public speaking skills. So devote some time to noticing where you are and where you want to go. The 10th most common public speaking phobia is the fear that someone might ask you a question that you don't know the answer to. If it's a question that you should know the answer to, you probably already know what I'm going to say. Prepare. Write down all the questions you could get and practice answering them. Specifically, practice the questions you'd love to get, and then practice the uh-oh questions, and answer them out loud. If it's a question that is not something you should obviously know, you need to get comfortable with gasp, admitting that you're not 100% sure. And rather than guess, you'd like to find out exactly and get back to the person asking. If it's a big group, collect a business card from the asker and follow up. If it's more a broad, general question, the very confident presenter will open it up to the audience and say, well, I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Either way, don't tap dance, don't get cute, don't sweat it out. It's just a question. Speaking of sweat, the 10th top public speaking phobias is the fear that you will sweat through your clothing or your face will turn red and your body will somehow betray you. It can derail a presenter in no time flat. It tears down confidence and triggers that nasty fight or flight reaction we spoke of earlier. Here's what I recommend. Identify your biggest issue. If you are a chronically heavy sweater, just own it. You now know how to focus on your breath and come back to the present moment, thereby arresting any mental spin-outs or shame spirals. But as a backup plan, wear something that doesn't accentuate sweaty armpits. Dark suit jackets usually work the best. And you know what? If you're having big pit marks, but you are nailing your presentation, people will forgive you. Well, now that we've identified the most common public speaking fears, here are 10 tips to help you overcome those fears. Know the room. Become familiar with the place in which you will speak. Arrive early and walk around the room, including the speaking area. Stand at the lectern. Speak into the microphone. Walk around where the audience will be seated. Walk from where you will be seated to the place where you will be speaking. Know the audience. If possible, greet some of the audience as they arrive and chat with them. It's easier to speak to a group of friends than to a group of strangers. Know your material. If you're not familiar with your own material or are uncomfortable with it, your nervousness will increase. Practice your presentation and revise it until you can present it with ease. Learn how to relax. You can ease tension by doing exercises. Sit comfortable with your back straight, breathe in slowly, hold your breath for 4 to 5 seconds, then slowly exhale. To relax your facial muscles, open up your mouth and eyes wide, then close them tightly. Visualize yourself speaking. Imagine yourself walking confidently to the lectern as the audience applauds. Imagine yourself speaking, your voice loud, clear, and assured. When you visualize yourself as successful, you'll be successful. Realize people want you to succeed. All audiences want speakers to be interesting, stimulating, informative, and entertaining. They want you to succeed, not fail. Don't apologize for being nervous. Most of the time, your nervousness does not show at all. If you don't say anything about it, nobody will notice. If you mention your nervousness or apologize for any problems you think you have with your speech, you'll only be calling attention to it. Had you remained silent, your listeners may not have noticed at all. Concentrate on your message, not the medium. Your nervous feelings will dissipate if you focus your attention away from your anxieties and concentrate on your message and your audience, not yourself. Turn nervousness into positive energy. The same nervous energy that causes stage fright can be an asset to you. Harness it and transform it into vitality and enthusiasm. And gain experience. Experience builds confidence, which is the key to effective speaking. Most beginning announcers find their anxieties decrease after each hosting job they get. Here is some more advice from the pros.
Hey there, Cody Schwabe here, and in this presentation I'm going to teach you how to overcome stage fright for good. Now, before I do, I actually need to tell you about one core concept that you need to know. And by knowing this core concept, you can better help eliminate your fear of public speaking for good. Now, the concept is this, that fear is actually the anticipation of physical or emotional pain. So either bodily harm or the fear of rejection or the fear of loss or whatever it is, that's what fear is. It's the anticipation of having a pain in some area. And by eliminating the fear that you have for stage fright or for public speaking or whatever it is, by identifying it and following some simple steps, you can actually eliminate this fear from your life for good. So today I'm going to teach you the 6 steps to overcoming stage fright for good. Alright, so let's go on to the first step. The first step is that you need to stay outwardly focused. And by this I mean, 1, you need to remember your main message and focus on that. Don't get distracted by outside thoughts. Don't get distracted by things going on, the people that you're talking to, those kind of things. Don't think about that. Just think about your message and communicating it. Also, focus on the audience, not yourself. So don't focus on, are you going to mess up? Don't focus on, if you forget your lines or any of those things. Don't focus on that because it may happen, but don't focus on it because you'll bring unnecessary anxiety on yourself. So focus on delivering your message to your audience. So focus on them. Lastly, deliver the message as if your audience needed to hear it regardless of the situation. So say, like they needed to hear it if it was going to save their life, right? So deliver the message as if they needed to hear it. All right, so the next step is step 2 is to start small. So first you want to practice to yourself in the mirror. So practice your message, whatever it is, to yourself a couple times in the mirror until you feel confident to share it with others. Next, once you've shared it in the mirror and you feel confident with that, tell a few friends and then ask their honest opinion afterwards. This way you can kind of show it to other people and you can get a small reaction about it. Lastly, give your speech in a small group setting. So maybe a small group of 10 to 12 people, maybe even 15 or 20, and gauge their reactions and ask them questions about how you did. This way you can kind of work your way up. You can step ladder from a small group to a large group setting, and you can share your message to the intended audience with that feedback. Step 3, you need to accept your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. But you don't want to focus on them. everything takes practice. Just like, all the best basketball stars in the world, football stars, anybody that's good at anything, obviously they practice. Now, it doesn't matter if they were naturally born with, a quote unquote gift, they still practice it to hone it, to hone those skills. So everything takes practice, and great speakers are made, not born. So even if you had the gift of gab and you can talk to people naturally, no problem, you still have to practice speaking in front of other people to become a good public speaker or a good performer. It doesn't matter what you're afraid of in regards to stage fright, even if you're a musician or whatever it is. The top musicians, they still get butterflies in their stomach. They still get anxiety before they go on stage, but they don't focus on that. They just deliver whatever it is that they're delivering. They just perform because they've practiced so many times. Lastly, avoid self-punishment, like not speaking again. So don't get hung up on the mistakes that you make. Like I said, everybody makes mistakes. It's just a part of life, but it's avoiding self-punishment that is the big thing. So you don't want to be hard on yourself because you made mistakes. You just learn from them, and then you just try to mold yourself into something else. So you just steer away from those things and just keep working on it over and over and over. So do not be hard on yourself. Just pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and move on. All right, so step 4, I want you to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. Now, this may say kind of cheesy or whatever, but it's the truth. So the first thing that I want you to think about is that people have short-term memories. So they're not going to remember everything that you said. They're also not going to remember every mistake that you made. So just remember that people will forget. Even if your message is great, they'll still forget that message over time. So it doesn't really matter how good or how bad you do. Just do it as best as you can. Also, the worst thing that can happen is that your speech is boring. So, if you give the speech and you give it as well as you can, and it's even a little boring, there's 2 things to come out of that. One, you still delivered your message. So that message, while it may be boring, there's still going to be people that may take something away from that message. Also, you can always work on better stage performance. So, maybe it's a little boring now. Well, just deliver it and then tweak it afterwards, and ask people what they thought about it. And if they thought it was boring, ask them how they think that you can maybe liven it up a little bit. Or ask other speakers. You don't have to implement those things, but you can ask afterwards. So don't worry about how good or bad it is, just get it out there. Lastly, if you overcome the phobia, you overcome the fear. So this phobia that people have, stage fright, or the fear of public speaking, is the #1 fear in the world. And people are just afraid to speak in front of other people. I don't know what it is. They're afraid of being rejected, or the fear of being found out as a fraud, if they say something wrong, or the fear of just people not liking the message, whatever it is. There's so many different reasons why people don't speak in front of other people, or that they feel like their opinion isn't good enough. Just so many things that break that confidence of speaking in front of other people. But here's the thing, if you overcome that phobia, you overcome the fear itself. So if you can break through it, you can just keep practicing over and over, and then you build up, it just goes away and it melts away, and you become better at controlling it. So even if you still feel it 200 speeches in, you've overcome it and it doesn't affect you. All right, so step 5 is that you need to convert your problems into solutions. So an example of this is if you get shaky hands or legs. So I get shaky hands, or I get fidgety hands, I should say. So when I speak in front of other people, my hands start to do things that I don't even know. So I just kind of control it. I start using my hands for gestures, or to make an image in the person's head. But if your legs get shaky, then just take a small walk across the stage. Walk from one end to the other casually and address the people as you go. Also, if you blank out, just tell a simple joke or a story or an anecdote to collect your thoughts and get back on track. It happens, you blank out. So you just need to kind of bring it back to the point of where you were at and just collect your thoughts and move on. It's not a big deal. Everybody does it, and you just got to learn from it and keep on moving. Now, lastly, is to become familiar. You need to become familiar mostly with your audience. So I want you to imagine a familiar face is watching whatever your speech is, and so you want to do your best for that person. If it's a loved one, if it's a friend, a family member, just somebody that you look up to, or someone that you want to impress with that performance or that speech, just imagine that that person is watching. So do your best for that person. Also, look at a few key people in the audience rather than everyone. If you try to scan across the whole audience, you're just going to probably take some time and focus too much on looking at everyone than you will your actual message. So pick a few key people in each area of the audience and just look at those people periodically. That way you can, make the appearance that you're looking out through the whole crowd, but you're really just looking at a few key people. And then you kind of have a reference. So every time you turn that direction, you just look for that person and you speak out to that person. Lastly, look for positive body language and use that as motivation. So, if you see people reacting the way you want them to your message, focus on those people and use that as motivation. So if you're giving a speech and you see that they're, it's an emotional speech and you see them crying, talk to those people. You really drive it home. Or if you see that they're enjoying the speech, talk to those people. So find those people that you see are having a positive reaction to your message or to your performance or whatever it is, and use that as motivation. Well, that's basically it. The main thing I want you to walk away with after this video is that how you think of yourself is much more important than what others think of you. So it doesn't matter if one person thought your message was bad. I'm sure that there's a dozen people that thought it was great. So it doesn't matter what people think of you or your message itself. You give your best every time, and if you really believe in your message, then it won't matter. So walk away with this, think of yourself as more confident than you think of yourself now, because you are your biggest confidence booster.
Well, it might sound silly when you think about how many of us get nervous giving a presentation. But when it's you that has to get up and give a speech, it probably doesn't seem silly at all. In fact, public speaking is serious business. It's how we make an impression and convey information. And even though making a high-quality, high-impact presentation can make us positively memorable in the eyes of our colleagues, public speaking doesn't have to feel as overwhelming, nerve-wracking, or daunting as many of us make it out to be. Most people agree that everyone gets nervous at one time or another, even the most experienced speakers. Whether it's presenting a new topic, presenting to a new audience, or presenting to an audience who knows you well and who will see you again tomorrow, like it or not, we all have scenarios that make us feel more or less comfortable and confident. So let's begin at the beginning. Why do we get nervous? There are a number of reasons why even thinking about public speaking could lead to anxiety. First of all, we often fear the unknown, whether the unknown is a first day at a new job, trying a new exercise, or yes, speaking to a new audience about a new topic. This is an adaptive response. Our brains are smart enough to protect us from entering into possible enemy territory without thinking through the consequences. But often, our brain takes this response too far and starts creating consequences that are bigger and far worse than anything that could possibly or reasonably happen. Second, in addition to our fear of the unknown, there is our anxiety about the known. For example, you may have given a recent presentation that didn't turn out as successfully as you would have hoped. So this time, when you're getting ready to make a presentation, your mind reminds you of what didn't work last time and replays the audio and the video over and over and over again of your less than stellar presentation. When we start to believe that our past experience predicts the next one, we feel doomed before we've even begun. However, when we choose to be proactive rather than reactive by analyzing what went wrong and what went well, even if all that went well was you not bursting into tears until you were safely in the elevator, we have the tools we need to make a thoughtful game plan for the next time. And yes, there will be a next time. Here are some other common fears that people have. Which ones do you experience? I fear that I haven't practiced enough and I will sound like I don't know my stuff. I fear that I have practiced too much and I will sound stiff and stilted. I fear that I don't know who this group is and what they're expecting from me. I fear that I do know who this group is and I cannot deliver on what they're expecting from me. I fear they won't like me. I fear my mind will go blank. I fear that I will do something embarrassing. I fear that I will fumble over my words. I fear I won't make sense. I fear that someone will ask a question that I can't answer. And the worst, most overwhelming and self-defeating fear that many of us have, I fear that I'll look like I'm in fear. So, let's go to fear. What it feels like, looks like, and what to do about it. What does presentation anxiety look like and feel like? Some public displays of fear include a pounding heart, shaking hands and legs, sweaty palms and foreheads, facial tics and twitches, a quivering voice, a flushed or pale face. Some more private displays of fear include nausea, dry mouth, racing thoughts. No wonder we fear the fear itself. That's a pretty package of symptoms, huh? Now, I want to ask you to close your eyes for a moment. Go ahead, I'll still be here when you open them. Okay, now that your eyes are closed, I want you to imagine that you have just won the lottery. Not a little lottery like just $1 million or two, but the Mega Million lottery. And even if you can't possibly imagine that happening, I want you to imagine exactly how you would feel the very moment you realize that your numbers were a match. How would your body react? Chances are, your heart would be pounding so hard you'd think you could see it through your shirt. You'd start to sweat. Your knees would grow weak and you'd worry you might collapse. Maybe your digestive system would start to rebel. You'd fear you're going to faint. All as a result of the happiest, most exciting day of your entire life. Doesn't all that sound an awful lot like presentation anxiety? Exactly right. Our bodies have similar physiological responses to excitement and fear. What sets them apart is what we choose to name them. The heart-pounding, dry mouth, weak in the knees feeling we associate with winning the lottery or getting married or riding a roller coaster, we label as excitement. The very same heart-pounding, dry mouth, weak in the knees feeling we associate with getting up in front of an audience, we label fear, dread, or doom. So, one technique to practice that can help you overcome the fear of public speaking is to take the label maker we all have in our heads and put a new label, excited, over the old label, scared. Keep telling yourself that you are enthusiastic, excited, even thrilled to be speaking to this group of people. The goal isn't to hide your symptoms, it's to make that adrenaline rush work in your favor before, during, and after your presentation. Here are some other tips and techniques that can help. Stop thinking of your audience as your judges and start thinking of them as your colleagues. You are the holder of valuable information that your audience wants and needs, and that they are enthusiastic, excited, and thrilled to have the chance to get it all from you. When you focus less on what this audience can do to you, which is probably nothing at all, and focus more on what you can do for them, you are much more likely to adopt a posture, tone, and attitude that will help you relax and connect. Prepare, 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 but don't over-prepare. Prepare yourself enough that you will feel you know your content well, know what your audience will want to hear most, and speak with some degree of interest and passion. Don't think that you need to be able to answer every single question that could come up. You don't. Don't think that you should memorize your presentation word for word. You shouldn't. Get moving. If you have nervous energy, do some kind of large muscle physical activity to harness that energy. Walk briskly around the building. Find a corner and do some squats. Give some enthusiastic handshakes with some big smiles. And don't forget to breathe slowly and consistently. Adequate oxygen in your system signals to your body that everything is okay. Play up your weaknesses in private. Practice and overemphasize any physical reactions you tend to have when you're nervous. For example, if you tend to blink a lot when you experience anxiety, practice your speech in front of a mirror, blinking as much as possible. Once you have heightened your nervous reaction, you are better able to control and eliminate it. Finally, make yourself laugh, whether you meant to or not. Laughing reduces stress. And when you are relaxed and happy, you are more likely to think clearly and connect better to any audience.
What up, everybody? It's Martin Sosa coming at you with another episode of Peak Your Mind. Today we're talking about how can you get in front of a group of people, either if you're giving a presentation or just like public speaking, and not be nervous doing it. And I get it, because I remember walking into my like a class during college. I was public speaking class, and I was looking at the syllabus, and I was like, shoot, we're actually gonna have to talk in front of people. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was just so nervous. And I remember getting up there and just like spitting out words. It just like, it's nervous, it's scary when you're putting yourself out there, because it's just like, I don't know, it's probably the fear of rejection, fear of failure, all that stuff piled into one, and then you gotta try to sound not like an idiot in front of people. But I want to share some tips just so we can kind of overcome those fears, right? Overcome those fears in life, and this is a big one. So whenever you're presenting or you have to speak in front of people, how can you calm those nerves? And what I found is, the most basic part is you always want to start by being prepared. If you know your stuff, if you really know your stuff thoroughly, then that's immediately gonna lower the nerves that you already have, because when you know your shit, you're just like on it. You're like this, and you snap into the mode that you need to snap into, right? So knowing your stuff is going to relieve that stress already. But let's say you already know your stuff. What do you do then if you still feel those nerves when you get up there, if your hands still shake and all that kind of stuff? And at that point, you really would just want to take control of your mind and your body. You got to realize that this is here to serve you. You can either be a slave to it, or you can use it to serve you, and you can command your body and your mind like to direct you and to help you in whatever you're doing. And so those nerves are just an emotional reaction. So what I'm recommending, the advice is really this: is be prepared, but if you're still nervous, if you're still, whatever, when you're getting up there, then you need to act confident. Just own this posture and like embodiment of confidence. It's almost like pretending, like think of the most confident person, pretend that you're that person, and you're gonna go deliver whatever it is you're gonna deliver with just the most powerful confidence ever, and you're just gonna give it to them and they're gonna love it. Because I remember, I was in this PR class, public relations class, and we were doing this group project, and we didn't have a lot of time. It was like very short notice. We waited till the last minute to really do it, and so we had to give this presentation on this project, blah blah blah, and we didn't really have time to rehearse together. We just said, okay, you kind of do this, and we'll all just present it, right? And we're gonna meet before class, but we ran out of time. So I'm literally driving on my way to class, and I'm trying to like practice what I'm gonna say here. So literally, I was like 10 minutes away from class, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna say here? Driving, trying to figure out. Probably super illegal, but whatever. And so we get to class, and we're all kind of nervous or whatever. And then one chick in my group goes, like, raises her hand. She goes, "Hey, can we go first?" And I'm looking over like, are you kidding me? You want to go first? We don't even know what we're gonna do, right? But whatever. She was like, "Yeah, you guys can go first." And so at that point, there's this other girl that was nervous in my group, and she's like, "Oh man, I don't know about this." And I'm in my head trying to say, okay, like, just get in the zone, bro. Like just own your confidence, blah blah blah. And I tell her, look, we're just talking to people in our class, right? If you can, like, trying to lessen the significance of who you're talking to. It's almost like, kind of like a play off of that whole, like, imagine people in their underwear. If you can realize, I'm just talking to other people in this classroom. They have to give presentations too. I'm not talking from the president. It's not that big of a deal, If you can lessen just the weight or the stress of who you're speaking to, that's gonna help you out too. That's kind of like a sub point behind the preparation. But after that, so I'm going, and I'm thinking, okay, Martin, get in the zone, like, because we're gonna get up there, right? So he calls us up, we're all like in our little attire or whatever, and we get up there and we line up by order, and I'm the last one, so I'm like the closing this thing out, and And so when I walk up there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna handle this, you know, I'm gonna get in the zone, I'm gonna be confident. And I walk up there like the biggest boss ever. I stand up there like, look around like, I'm gonna give you guys the best motherfucking speech you've ever heard, you know? And so I'm up there just getting in the zone, and it's like a movie. It's like the anticipation's building, because it's like I'm the last one. We have 5 people, so it's like this person's going, they pass it off to the next person, it's getting closer and closer to me, and I'm like, just stay in the zone, man, stay in the zone. And so finally it gets to the person next to me, and they say, okay, I'm gonna pass this off to Martin. And I just like snap right into it, and I'm like, okay, this is what we're gonna do with this, blah 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 blah, explaining it, making it conversational, blah blah blah. And so we all sit down, right? Give our presentation, thank you, blah blah blah. We all sit down, all the other groups go, they all sit down, and then our teacher comes up and he's like, guys, I gotta be honest with you, I'm really disappointed with all you guys. You guys, you know, weren't smiling. You guys really just like, I mean, if you're gonna be doing this class, if you're gonna do these kind of projects, this kind of work, then you really need to be doing a much better job. And he was like letting us have it, you know? And I was thinking, shit. But then he starts to point out some positives, and he points out a couple people, and then he goes, Martin, you surprised the hell out of me. I thought you were gonna be quiet, I thought you were gonna be shy, I thought you were gonna be nervous, but you stood up there, and you were charismatic, and you were confident, and you delivered, and you had good hand gestures, and you smiled. And I was thinking, and I was like, thank you. But in my head I was thinking, fuck yeah. Like, I was so excited. So the moral of the story is, don't prepare at all and just be overly confident and everything will work out fine. Now, the moral of the story is, you have to prepare. The preparation is the foundation. But if you're still feeling nervous, just get in the zone of being confident. Put yourself physically and mentally in that confident place, and then when it's your time, just act and just go and just flow from that place, and allow that emotion of confidence to take over. Because when you can control your emotions, that nervousness it's not gonna like override you. It's not gonna control you. You're gonna control it. You're gonna be the boss. You're gonna be mastering your domain, your mind, and your body. So that's something that helped me out. I thought that was kind of a funny experience, and I know if you're gonna put these tools into practice, then they're gonna help you too. But I wanted to share that with you guys. I love you guys. Hope you're having a great week.
All right, switching gears now. This week you're going to be recorded on camera doing a cold reading. A cold reading is basically reading something without having a chance to review the copy. I have complete instructions in this module, but I'll go through them now. You'll be provided with copy for you to read out loud in class. You'll be recorded on camera reading this copy. Being able to read copy cold without much time, if any, to review ahead of time is an important skill. Often, as a broadcaster or announcer, you'll be expected to deliver scripted material without the chance to prepare. The goal is to read this material in a natural, conversational voice. Try to sound as if you're talking to a friend, rather than sounding like you're reading something for the very first time. Practice. This is not an easy task, and it takes a lot of practice to get good at this, to the point where you can pick up any type of script and read it smoothly without sounding like you're reading. So some notes before you start. Look over the room. Meet the eyes of a couple of people and smile. Make contact. Take a deep breath or two, and then smile again. And finally, you're going to look directly into the camera while you're reading this copy, and then you'll begin. After you record your cold reading, please review it, taking notes. Watch it a few times with a critical eye, and then answer the following questions on a Word doc. Did I sound smooth, conversational, and natural? Did I put the punctuation, also known as pauses, in the correct place? Did I put the emphasis in the right place? Did I sound the same throughout the read? Every sentence is delivered the exact way, or did I vary the delivery? Submit your answers to these questions and any other notes that you think are important about your cold reading to the Dropbox, the exercise Dropbox at the bottom of this week's module. Well, that's the end of this lecture video. Please continue working your way through this module. Contact me if you have any questions. And remember, you must complete all of the assignments that are due this week by the end of this week, Sunday at 11:59.